Before we go into the podcast, I want to just talk about a business that I've set up with my friend George. It is called the Podcast Introduction Group. So if you want to join and be able to be featured on 24 to 48 podcasts to be able to reach an amazing audience, this is the place you need to go to. Podcast, being a guest on podcasts, is automatically establishing you as an authority and is able to build your personal and professional brand. We handpick of a bank of podcasters that we have to be able to grow your business and brand. We do 100% of everything that needs to be done by my team. You do not need to lift a finger. You are able to expose yourself to new and relevant markets by going on other people's podcasts. You also are able to create brand loyalty. People will love listening to you and coming back to your products or services, and it's able to increase your revenue. So if you want to be able to get involved, you can sign up quickly, registered with an account manager. There's an onboarding call where we target the podcasts that you want to be on, the type that you want, whether it's entrepreneurship, business, health, fitness, whatever it is. We then match you to those podcasts and you can start your journey. We have regular catch-ups with our account managers, and Google ranks you when people search for you. So when people are searching for you, you're able to see your podcasts at the top of the list. So if you are interested in being a podcast guest on multiple podcasts, we are the place to go. If you go to podcastintroduction.com and go and register your details, we will have a quick call with you, match your podcast that you want to be on, and we can then start this process ASAP. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Back onto the podcast then. Just one last thing before we go into the podcast. I just wanted to talk to you about the fact that I have a YouTube channel that has been going for quite some time, and I am recording and releasing all of my interviews with some short videos as well on YouTube. So please do check it out. YouTube on Absolute Business Mindset. You'll see a bunch of interviews there, all the longer format interviews and some short videos as well. So please enjoy that. And here goes with the podcast interview. Today we have Ken Rusk, who is an author, entrepreneur, and blue-collar advocate. Hello, Ken. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm really good. Thank you so much for joining me. This is going to be a slightly different sort of mix-up of an interview. We're going to talk a lot about blue-collar working, but as we always do with the start of the podcast is called the Absolute Business Mindset. What does a business mindset mean to you?
Well, for me, it means that when I look at my company, I think that I can't get what I want for myself, nor can my company get what it wants or needs until everybody within it gets what they want first. And I think that's really, really important that we let go of this ego, this boss thing, and really try to dig deep into what the people that are working with and around us want for themselves first. Because if they're winning in their own personal lives, your company's going to win big that way.
What does winning mean to you?
Well, winning is if I can create a team of people, let's call them entrepreneurial minded employees. If I can create a team of those working around me, and I get to watch every one of them either anticipating or chasing or finding or obtaining something that they want for themselves in their personal lives. And if they look back at me and say, you know what, I can get what I want for myself with and through your company, and I can grow and progress in the world that I see my perfect nirvana, then that's what I want. And if I can build a team that does that, well, let them win first, and I'm always going to win second.
How many of these entrepreneurial employees go off and run their own businesses after working with you for a while?
You really can't be afraid of that. I mean, I started with 6 and I have 200 now. And I have to tell you, I have so many people that have been here 25, 30, 35 years. And the reason is because if they feel like they are in control of their own departments, if they're in control of their own budgets and in control of their own results, and therefore they're in control of their own income, why would they want to go off and start their own thing? I mean, I let them I give them a really wide scope to go out and affect their departments, and I leave them alone. So, and they kind of are owners without all the risk and without all the downside. And it's just been a really great formula for us.
And must be tricky finding the right people, because there's a lot of we've employed with my businesses. You find you have people that are entrepreneurial in spirit and want to develop your business. Equally, we've got doers and people who are people who are managers, and people that are the people that just want to do the doing side as well. How do you? What's your sort of structure? What's your sort of plan when you're employing or hiring people?
Well, that's the best part. See, it used to be, Mark, that years ago, I mean, you could put an ad in the newspaper and the next day there'd be 15 people sitting in your foyer ready to work. Well, now that's changed. Now there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of competition for people. So when you find that person that comes into your office and you have this interview, I think the best way to do that is to just simply ask them, well, why are you here? And get beyond the typical, I'm here for Friday, or I'm here for this month, or I'm here to make my bills, or I'm here to get paid, or whatever. Get beyond those conversations and say, okay, well, now if you had an extra X amount of money laying around, what would you do with it? How would you benefit yourself? And what are you in this for? Like, why are you working? You don't live to work. You work so that you can, in fact, live. And I want to know what the live part looks like, so you and I can get there together.
Amazing. Thank you. Tell me one thing about your upbringing that reflects you as a person now.
I had 4 brothers, and we lived in a really small house. My dad was a Marine, and he was pretty tough. And, we had to make our beds, and we had to do everything perfectly. And that was fine. But I think the biggest thing was, if I wanted something beyond, shelter and food and basic clothing, if I wanted something, frivolous, like, I don't know, a baseball mitt or who knows, whatever it was, I had to kind of go after that and go find a way to get it. And so for me, there was a lot of, okay, so if I work this job, I can create this much money and I can own that thing that I'm after. And I had some good examples in my life of people who said, this is the way I want my life to look. And I've drawn all that out. I keep it in front of me like a life brochure, if you will. And I'm going after those things one piece and one step at a time. And they're constantly seeing progress and anticipating their future. And it was just a really fun way to grow up. I had a lot of odd jobs when I was younger, and it was a way for me to say, well, I can use these same formulas to create this team of people around me, and it works pretty well.
And was your father a Marine? Was he doing service? Was he doing tours while you were a youngster?
No, he was. This was before I was born, so he actually enlisted, but never had to go into any foreign conflict or anything like that. But he still had a real solid discipline about him just going through that training. And it's funny because when you have 5 kids and you're making, I think at the time he was making like $14,000 a year, it was really tough. But you don't know what you don't have. I mean, you grow up, and that's just the way it is. But yeah, it was really kind of cool because it set us all up to be kind of doers. And I don't know that I would exchange that for, someone who just gives me whatever I wanted. You know what I mean? It kind of taught me a lot of self-discipline that way. But it's something I think we need more of in this world. But yeah, I think finding an awesome mentor, and that can be a relative, or it could be someone that is in business or whatever. I think that's an important thing for young people to have.
Absolutely, and I do think that discipline which you mentioned is something. Like I've got 2 young kids, 6 and 8, 2 girls, and we're trying to instill good behaviours, obviously, and good discipline. But it's hard. It's because the way school is structured, the way society, like school, I don't think necessarily always helps children become entrepreneurs. Basically they're fashioned to do a job. You're trained to go from the experience of school to university into a job. It's not always encouraging entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, I feel bad for that, because when I grew up in high school, they had something called shop class. And you could walk down the hallway and see somebody working on the transmission on a Mustang, or you could watch some gal doing some hair on her friend's hair, or you could see someone maybe baking something, or you could see somebody welding or wiring an outlet, or, building furniture. And that was really cool, because you would almost accidentally discover how cool the trades were, the blue collar trades were. And what happened was, for some reason, Mark, they decided to take those machines out and they filled those rooms with computers. I'll never forget the day they did this. And we all needed to learn computers, but why did it have to be one or the other? Because what happened was, you set this expectation up now that it's like, okay, I'm going to high school, and then I'm obviously going to have to go to college because that's what they're telling me.
Yeah.
And then what's beyond that? So, just in the US here, I'll give you a quick stat. There's 167 million people considered full employment. And yet, to this moment, as we sit here right now, about 77 million of those people still work with their hands. And yet we're trying to shove all 167 million of our next generation into college. Yeah. It sets up a really bad supply and demand situation, but it sets up one that if you're the savvy person, you can really take advantage of where supply is low and demand is high, because that's where the money goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Something you said about drawing out your life and people in your past helped you with that. And I know that's something that you talk about. You've talked about that on social media and how you plan your life and help other people plan their lives out. What does that look like? How big is the piece of paper? What areas are you covering? Sort of like work and business and family, and how do you sort of sketch that out?
Well, the first thing that I do is I talk about, what's your nirvana look like? And everyone's drawing is different. I mean, that's the beauty of this. You and only you know what you want that to look like. So I'll basically take like maybe a 2x4 foot piece of poster board and give them a box of crayons. And I use crayons because the last time you held a crayon in your hand, you were probably 4 or 5 years old. And it was when you were probably your most creative point in your life, right?
Yeah.
Draw a rocket or draw a horse or draw whatever. So I'll actually have them draw several categories. I start in the middle with what they would want their house to look like, whether it's a house or a condo, it's a farmhouse, suburbs, whatever. Okay. Apartment in the city, whatever. Then on the fringes of that, we'll draw what their favorite transportation might be. Are you a pickup truck guy, or are you a minivan girl, or are you a motorcycle or public transportation or electric car, whatever it might be. And then we'll move around the picture. Okay, so what would your hobbies be like? If you could live your perfect life, what kind of hobbies would you focus on? What would your sport be? What would your pet look like? Is it a dog or a cat? And if so, what kind, what color, what would you name it? Okay. Is there a charity moment that you would want to support? Is there a health thing that you would focus on, or a spiritual thing? And we really get this picture drawn of, man, you know what? What would my vacations look like? Am I a beach person or a mountain person? Okay. Mm-hmm. So we actually draw that out and get people really in touch with, man, that's my life picture right there. That's the brochure of Ken Rusk. I would love to create that type of life. And I did that myself. And, so far I've accomplished most of those things. So I know that your brain is so powerful that what it sees very clearly, it tends to attract itself to. And I think the vision part of our brain, the proactive side of our brain, is something we don't use nearly enough. We're always relying on the reactive side, stimulus reaction. I would rather look ahead, look forward, anticipate life, follow and chase these things, and just, have a great time doing it.
Amazing. I think it's something that I'm big on setting goals, which I do in January and I review in sort of July, August time. But I quite like the idea of doing something visual and having it maybe on, because I have the list of goals that I have and then how I'm monitoring them. But actually something pictorial and visual could really help and sort of use another part of your brain. I think that's really interesting.
Well, I'll give you a quick example. So when I was first buying out my company, I built this company and I had a partner and I was buying him out. And I knew that I wanted to reward myself. I'm a car guy. I just love cars. Okay. That's just my thing. So I went to a dealership for this car that I wanted. And I asked them for a brochure and they said, are you interested in buying one? And I said, yes, I'm going to come back in 7 years. And they looked at me and they laughed like, yeah, okay, whatever. So then year 2, I went back and I got another brochure and I kept it in my nightstand and I looked at it all the time. Year 3, year 4, same thing. By the 4th year, the salesperson looked at me and he said, you know what? I'm starting to believe you're actually going to do this. And I said, you watch. By year 5, by year 6, I went in there and I ordered that car and they were jumping up and down because they had been talking about me for 7 years thinking, what is this guy doing? And I said, all I'm doing is using the power of visualization to get me down the path to doing this. And I got to tell you, Mark, it's so powerful. If we could just unlock, that part of our brain, we would all be so much better off because living and seeing what you want your future to look like is just a much better way to do it.
What was the car that you were pursuing?
It was a silver 911 C4S. And
a Porsche?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And I have the version 2 of that in my garage right now. So it's been great.
And is that one of your you said it's your passion, cars? So are you someone that does cars up, or are you a collector? Are you a trader? What does the car mean to you?
Well, I would say I'm probably a mini collector. I have, I wanted a muscle car, I wanted an old car, I wanted a European car, and I've probably got 6 or 7 of them, and it's just something that I really, really love to do. It's not for everybody. I mean, other people do other things and that's fine, but this just happened to be my thing. And, it's fun.
Amazing. So your early career, you said on the research that I was digging around, trying to find some understanding of where the journey for Ken started and how it got to this point where, an entrepreneur, blue collar advocate, social media, amazing presence that you've got on social media as well. But where did it all start in construction? What trade did you initially learn?
So when I was in high school, when I was 15, our property, the high school property, shared a fence with an industrial park. And there is a well-worn hole in that fence. It had been there for years. And we used to go through that hole in the fence. So we would walk through the industrial park and get to the carryout on the corner where we would just hang out after school and try to figure out life, right? So I remember going through this industrial park and there was this building there that always had this hustle and bustle and, people milling around and equipment and machinery and, things that young guys liked, backhoes and dump trucks and all that kind of stuff. And I remember I knew somebody that worked there and I remember saying, I want to find out what they're doing here. I mean, I needed money like anybody else, Mark. I wanted to get my first new car or used car. I wanted to take my girlfriend out for pizza or go bowling with my buddies, whatever. So I went in and I said, what do you do here? And they said, well, we dig ditches. And I said, okay, well, I think I'm qualified to do that. So I would do that in the summertime and when I wasn't in high school. And in the winter, I would work in the office after school. And so I kind of got a well-rounded sense of what the company, how it ran after 2 or 3 years. So when it came time to decide if I was going to college or not, I had the opportunity to go out and open branch offices of this company around the Midwest of the United States. And I thought, I can learn how to build a business from scratch over and over and over using other people's money, their risk, and just figure this out. So I decided to do that, and I did that for 3 or 4 years. I opened the first 6 offices for our company, and then, you get tired of living out of a suitcase. So I moved to Toledo, and we opened up our company here, and it's been it's been 36 years, so it's pretty great ride ever since.
And it's still staying true to digging ditches, digging holes.
Yeah, oh yeah, we fix wet basements, so. We literally jack up buildings, tear the basements out, put a new basement in, and set it back down. And we do. There's a lot of ditch digging involved in that, and we do sump pumps and piping systems and drainage and foundation work and all that kind of stuff. So, we're still doing that today.
Amazing. Who taught you the value of working with your hands?
Oh my God, that's a great question. I had a couple of job foremen that knew how to make a crew really sing together, really hum together. I would say it was probably my first landscape job because that created what I called a stand back moment that I'll never forget. And that is, we were working on these big houses, and these houses had big landscape budgets. So we would plant 50 pine trees and move big rock in and build ponds and waterfalls and stuff like that. And I'll never forget, we were one day we were putting the trees in, and we were getting to the point where we were mulching it all in, to make it finished. And we all stood back and leaned on our shovels and looked at that, and we said, wow, that is so beautiful what we just created with our own two hands. And that's why I call it the stand back moment, because I don't think you get that, in the 15th floor in some cubicle in some office building. I just don't think you do. And so, yeah, I'll never forget that, because I thought, I created that. I did that, which means I can do that anywhere. And there's value to that, and there's financial gain to that. So that kind of kicked it all off.
It's really interesting speaking to you, Ken, because what I hear from you, which is sort of underlying everything that you're doing, it's being a creator. Yes, you've got your businesses. Yes, I understand that you do, but you talk very passionately about building something. Now, I spent 14 years in corporate in that booth, working on computers and software and selling and buying and all these things. And you did have you do a deal and you win a client, and that's a real sort of cliche, but a high five moment. It's like, yeah, well, we've done a good job there. We've now doubled revenue or whatever it is. But actually, there's actually a mindset shift that you've talked about throughout this conversation so far, about actually creating something and doing something. And we've talked about doing it with your hands, but it's actually a creation that I feel is a theme running through.
Well, if you think about the earliest, settlers or people, they had to do it all. They had to do everything. Okay. Grow their food, build their house. They had to do all those kinds of things. And I just think there's something inherent about that in people. So I look at it this way. If I get to control my input, I can control my output. I can control the quality of that output. I can control the pace, the day, the scheduling of all that. I can control the quality of my work and the feedback I get from my customers. And ultimately, I can control my financial gain from all of that. Now, that's an enormous responsibility, because no one's standing behind you when you say something like that. But I don't think there's any other way to live than to be in total control of how you create your life. That's just the way I've always been. And I know that, there are some people that say, well, you know what? I kind of like the security of being in a large corporation with a bunch of people. And that's cool. Everyone has their thing. My favorite color is blue. Someone else's favorite color might be red, and we're both right. So for me, it was all about, I constantly want to be able to build something, see something, create something, and then control my life because of that effort. So that's kind of how it's been.
Amazing. Thank you. Tell me about your book, Blue Collar Cash.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Alex, the host of X Health Show. Meet the future of healthcare. Think X-Men, that's X Health. Actual superheroes behind programming living cells to cure cancer once and for all. Tech that detects preterm delivery in seconds, brain-computer interface, or apps that employ AI to match you, your disease, with the best treatment. X Health Show brings to you visionaries who push the boundaries of healthcare from Switzerland, the heart of Europe and the most innovative country in the world. Let me introduce you to their startups. Head to X Health Show, meet the future of healthcare. Happy to greet you there.
So, as you can imagine, when you're hiring, when you have a staff of 200, you have to hire a lot of people, right? Especially since this is in some cases their first, second, or third job. So I found out, Mark, that I was having to become this involuntary life coach. Okay. I have no letters after my name. I never went to school. I never college, and I don't have a degree in psychology, none of that. But I did know how to create a future, a vision for a future with people. So I found myself coaching a lot and, helping people with their first car, their first driver's license, maybe their first credit card, their first checking account, their first apartment, getting them started on their life, their 401k investments, whatever. And so the more I did that, the more this became successful. And the more I built people around me that were self-sustaining, which I think is the goal for any entrepreneur. And, it's interesting because the more I did it, even my wife said to me, she goes, you need to get the message of what you do beyond the four walls of your company. So I literally sat down and started writing about some of the things that I had done, some of the people that work here still today, and friends of mine that were entrepreneurs and how they thought and how they moved forward. And, sooner or later, I had 80,000 words and it was on 10 legal pads and I was writing like a fiend. And it's funny because I remember being on an airplane and I'm writing. And the guy sitting next to me says, what are you doing? And I said, I think I'm writing a book. Okay. And he says, I know, but you're writing it. We have these things called computers now. And I said, yeah, I know, but I write 3 words. I have to erase 2 of them because I don't type very well. So I literally filled up 10 or 12 legal pads and then sent it off to an editor and got really lucky.
Amazing. What do you think the difference is? And we've covered this slightly, but I just want to delve into this a little bit more. What's the difference between a craftsman that, for example, who creates furniture, wood furniture, and is the craftsperson who does the design, creates it himself, versus a blue collar entrepreneur? Because I definitely feel that you're the entrepreneur side. You see the value, and you probably have passions with your hands, but you're definitely seeming to be a blue collar entrepreneur. What's the difference between the mindset between a craftsman and an entrepreneur for you?
I think it's just a why. It's how powerful is your why? Why am I building furniture? Okay. Am I building it because I want everyone to leave me alone and just let me go work in the corner and do my own thing by myself and not be bothered? Then if that's your comfort place, then yeah, that's it. Go there, do that. But if you have something where you say, not only do I want to build this furniture, but I want to create a company around it, and I want to create a family of people that work inside of that, then you're an entrepreneur. The difference between those two people is one of them has a much bigger, much clearer vision of what they want their future to look like than the other one does. And, it's all a matter of the risk associated with that next step. Some people are risk averse. No problem. Do your thing, live your life, be that furniture builder and love it. Cool. Other people are like, I want to take that to the next level. I see much bigger picture for myself. So I'm going to take those skills and the risk associated with that next level. And I'm going to take the leap and see what happens.
And obviously risk is incredibly important for an entrepreneur. To be successful, you have to take risks. You have to mitigate risks. You have to be able to control them as much as possible, even when they might seem that they're uncontrollable. What's your appetite? What's your risk appetite?
People have told me that I'm kind of a risk junkie. I was one of the first people to bungee jump, and I have no problem jumping off cliffs in Jamaica that are 50 feet high, and I don't do that anymore. But I like to race my cars, and so people think that I'm a little bit of a risk junkie. I'm also the one that if we're in a conversation, I don't have a problem saying something humorous and hoping that it falls the right way. But yeah, I don't do things financially risky. I don't like over leverage myself or anything like that. I take the risk in the action of doing something, but I don't take the risk as much. There's a lot of people that say, leverage everything to the hilt because you can build your company. That's not me. I don't sleep well at night with that. I would rather risk the effort that I use to create revenue rather than the banks to use to create revenue. And I think that might be a little bit of a difference between me and some people who are just corporate titans, that have no problem doing that. But yeah, I mean, I think you just have to measure that within yourself. I mean, how far do you want to take what you're currently doing? And the other thing I'll tell you is this, when I started, we had pieces of graph paper, accounting paper, and we were writing with pencils to keep track of all the numbers and the financial statements and all that. Well, you can run a business now on your cell phone with a pickup truck and you're like self-sustaining. And a lot of that stuff we didn't have. So some of the risk has lessened. I think the barrier to entry has really fallen for people to get into their own businesses. And a lot of these services that used to cost thousands of dollars cost tens or hundreds of dollars now, and you can do them yourself. So I think the risk is lower, but it's all about how hard you're willing to work to go make those things happen for yourself.
Absolutely. And risk as an entrepreneur. So my listeners are mainly entrepreneurs and business owners, so they understand risk a lot. And you've got people who over leverage themselves and end up in real problems because they've taken that risk and over leveraged. And as an entrepreneur myself, I understand that the whole cash is trash. I think is absolute rubbish when you're in a tricky time, in a recession time, which we're moving into or moved into. It having that sort of safety net is actually sometimes the thing that keeps a business afloat or doesn't. So as I touched on the recession, how recession proof is blue collar workers?
Well, I think you kind of got a little sense of that during the pandemic because people stayed home. And the first thing they did was they looked around. I need a new deck. I need a new patio. I need a new grill. I need a new, I need my basement finished off so my kids can play here. Because, we started living in minivans, okay, where every day it was traveling to here, traveling to there. No one stayed home. And now you see a lot of people. I mean, for the first time, Mark, in a long time, I saw more people walking their dogs, playing football in the front yard with their kids. I mean, the things that we used to do, riding bikes, I saw those things before, but they kind of weaned in the last 10 or 20 years. But man, I'll tell you, during that pandemic, that stuff came rushing right back. So I think the thing about recessions is people, instead of buying new things, they tend to fix what they have. So anything that you do to fix, repair, build, add on, maintain, those are all pretty recession proof.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is my brother was a quantity surveyor. I don't know if they have them in the US, but essentially I used to joke with him, counting bricks is sort of the joke we used to have with him. And in 0708, he was working for a really reputable company, worked on multiple large sites that they were doing the surveying and etc. And he was made redundant because the construction industry suffers. And when I talk to people who have been in the construction industry, and it might be slightly different for you, but they've really suffered in recessions because people stop spending on building new office blocks, new flats. Sometimes there's problems with construction. Money runs out. I've got an example of an area quite close to us. They were redeveloping in 0708, and literally they downed tools for 2 years because the money had dried up. How do you reconcile that? How do you mitigate that? How do you work towards beating those sorts of issues?
Well, what I said before was, a lot of new building stops, but fixing, maintaining, and altering, right, and that kind of stuff, that stuff flourishes. So I think money just moves. I think money moves from exploration into new types of developments, and the demand shifts over to fixing what you have. So if you can swing a hammer, whether you're building a new wall or tearing out an old one and replacing it, it's the same swinging of the hammer. And I just think you need to be able to, there's a great book that was called Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah, love it. Yeah.
And you're basically saying, okay, I used to go there to get my cheese. Now it's not there, so I have to go find it somewhere else. And I think this is a wonderful case of that, because every person that was in construction in our town, all of a sudden they went, instead of new construction, they went and started doing remodeling.
Right.
And they were so busy that you were waiting 6 months for these people to come to your house. So yeah, I think it's just a shift. I don't think it's an elimination as much as it is a shift. Now, if you're a surveyor, that's a pretty special type of scenario. And yeah, you're not going to get those huge acreage plots redone or fired up. But yeah, you just got to learn to move to where it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that seems to be a theme through what you're talking about today, and to loop back to something you mentioned earlier about people and about helping people and supporting people, your employees. Where do you think that fascination in people and thinking about what people's needs are and helping people came from?
You know, I've been on a lot of podcasts, and so far you've asked like a half a dozen really awesome questions.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, they're all good questions, but a couple have been really good. I would say this. Okay, so I've always been somewhat of a pleaser. My father always said, you know, do something. If you're going to do something, do it really, really right. Okay, to the point of, you know, almost perfectionism. And so he would have me wax cars for his friends, and I would have to make sure the wax residue wasn't on where the hood met the fender and all that kind of stuff. So seeing other people enjoy the fruits of your labor was something that I always really liked to do. It was really great to have that. But I just have to tell you, there's something wholly empowering in helping someone who lives for Friday and doesn't see beyond their month, to get them to now become this self-directed, goal-oriented, self-managing, you know, machine, where then they look at you and say, Ken, you taught me, I got it. Now get out of my way and let me go do it. There's just something amazingly rewarding about that. And I'm kind of addicted to it. So I want to do it over and over and over again. And, you know, and at the same time, I recognize that I'm one person. I can't do it all. And I can tell you that if you think your business is at level X and you want to get it to Y, you have two choices. You can work twice as hard, or you can enlist the help of others. And for me, I thought, well, let's try something. I'm at level X. I want to go to level Z. Okay. I want to increase the company 50%. I'm going to get this group of people around me, and I'm going to say, this is where we're at. This is where we'd like to go. And if we get there, I'm going to share a significant portion of that with you. Man, and I'll tell you what, giving away something that you don't even have yet, what's wrong with that? So it was an amazing thing, because the company exploded, and it was fun to watch, because they all got to win and gain in their personal lives in the process.
Amazing. You've talked about goals, and I mentioned I'm a big goal setter and track it and monitor it and see where I'm going with that. You talk about sort of short, medium, and long-term goals, and you talked about your vision board as well. How do you sit down with a new employee or someone that's new into your company and sort of sketch out those short, medium, and long-term goals? And how long is a long-term goal?
Well, the first thing that we do is in the hallway of our company, we have these huge glass boards. They're black glass, and they're hung on the wall. And we have these neon colored markers that you can write on this board. And we show them that board the minute they walk in the door, before we even interview them. We show them that this is the culture that we have here. If you're not chasing something, you know, you need to figure out how to anticipate something in your life, because we want you to win here. So that's one of the first things that we show them. And then the other thing is you got to make sure that you really put this into practice, because, you know, the word goal is one of the most overused words in the English language, and people tend to like dilute the meaning of that. So let's assume you have somebody that says, man, you know what? And I had this. I want to go see my cousin who lives in Scotland. Okay. Well, let's figure that out. How much is that going to cost you? Okay, it's going to cost me $3,000. Okay. When do you want to do this? Well, I want to do it when I save up the money. Okay. So what can you afford per week? I can save, $20 a week. Okay. $20 a week is $1,000 a year. In 3 years, you're going to Scotland. Let's put the date today. Let's put the start right now. Let's deduct that money out of your paycheck. And you will for sure, in 3 years from today, be going to Scotland to see your cousin. And it works. The thing about long-term goals is, I'm 58 years old, I think. I can't remember 2011, 12, 13. I mean, it goes by so fast. And we started doing this when we would do golf trips a long time ago, and it works. So you do it with your buddies, and the way that you anticipate something for 2 or 3 years is just awesome. I mean, because you're thinking about it, you're visualizing it, you're dreaming about it, and then you go and do this thing. So for us, a goal isn't just a word. It's an actionable, mechanical thing that's live and in play. And if it's not, then it's just a hope, a wish, or a dream. And we don't deal with those things. Okay. We deal with it's either in reality or it's not.
I've actually written down, and you might not like the description that I'm going to use, but I've just written down about dreams. So you seem to be trying to work through long-term goals. For example, going to visit someone in Scotland, or planning a trip, and it's not. We're all in the current society that we're living in. Everything's got to be immediate. We're going, so we'll put it on the credit card because we want to go in 2 months' time.
Right.
But actually, what you're talking about is being a little bit old-fashioned in the best possible way. And I must say, like the debt, the sort of commercial debt, the debt that people get themselves into to go on that holiday or go on that trip can put them into real problems. But you seem to have this beautiful sort of dream, like catch people's dreams and make them practically able to happen. And it won't happen in 2 months, but it might happen in 2 years. Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. You said it really great. I just want to clarify one thing. In our office, you're not allowed to dream about a dream. You're allowed to dream about a goal if that goal is live and in place. So once that goal is live and in place and on the wall, you can dream about it all you want. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to anticipate it. You're going to love it. You're going to get ready for it. And the time goes by. And the cool thing, Mark, is once somebody has done that one time, they learn how to do it on different scales. Like they want to pay off a nasty credit card, and that's going to take them 6 months. Scotland's going to take them 3 years. My house is going to take me 5. I'm going to save up money for a down payment on my house. My 401k, I'm going to do that for 30 years from now, but I'm going to get it started. So that's the beauty of it, is if you can have different goals for different lengths of time, all kind of happening at the same time, then life just kind of drags you forward. You don't have to get out of bed and go, oh my gosh, what am I going to do today? You kind of get pulled along by the anticipation of all those things. It's a force, as I said earlier, when your brain is attracted to something very clearly, it takes you there, man. And that's what's so neat about seeing, people in our office get these things, because they know they're fully in control of it. And they're like, hey, I can figure out my life with and through Ken's company here. This is a pretty cool thing.
Amazing. I love that. Absolutely love that. What's the plan for the next 2 to 5 years for Ken?
Okay, so I'm going to build another building for my corporate office here. You see, Mark, I'm so good at figuring out how big the building needs to be that this is going to be my 5th one that I have to move into.
Right.
So I wish I could tell you I was that good, but I'm not. I'm terrible. But that means we're growing, so that's a good thing. So I'm going to do that. I'm creating a wood shop for my son-in-law. He loves to do wood projects and whatnot, and that's going to be something we're going to create. I've built a barn, and we're going to create that over the next year so he can do things there. I'm certainly going to try to create more moments for myself. I love golf trips, and I love to go on golf trips to Europe and to Scotland and Ireland and whatnot. So, I could be here all day. There's probably about 10 things that I want to do that are all middle term and long term. I have to start thinking about my retirement because I'm 58. But I'm anticipating all those things and, hopefully smiling about it along the way.
Excellent. And that means are you building a new office, or are you finding somewhere that you're going to move into?
No. We're going to build it. My daughter and her husband are architects, and they're new architects, and they're going to be designing and building this building for us. And it's fun because I get to work with them, and they're very creative. And again, they're doing things better than I would have done it. Okay. I would have said, here's a box, connect them together, raise it up. No, they have all this ways that they can make it energy efficient and stylish and all that. And it's just fun. It's fun to watch and see what they come up with and what they create. And then hopefully we'll get it out of the ground next year.
And have you sold the other previous iterations of your buildings that you built?
Yeah, I have. In fact, I'm a renter in my own building now, which is really odd. I look around and I think, okay, this isn't mine anymore. But that's a necessary part of the plan.
Excellent. We're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quick-fire questions. They don't need a quick-fire answer. First one is, what's the best decision that you made?
The best decision that I ever made was to make myself irrelevant to the workings of my company and plug myself in wherever I wanted. I know that's a hard thing for people to do because their boss, their ego thing comes in, but get yourself out of it, look back at it, and you're going to find a way to run it a lot better than you do now.
Yeah. Dropping the ego when you're running a business is so important for entrepreneurs.
It is.
What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
The best piece of advice I've been given. I think the best piece of advice I've ever been given is, and I write about this in the book, I've never built a skyscraper before, but if I did, I probably would need some land. Okay, I never built a skyscraper before, but if I did, I probably would need an architect and then a contractor and then some building supplies and then some permits. And so the more you ask yourself something that you've never done before, the more you walk yourself actually through doing it. And pretty soon you've already done it in your mind. So it gives you a lot of confidence to try to tackle something that you've never done before.
So this isn't part of the 6 questions, but it's in something I just want to ask you. Comfort zone. It seems to me, the way you've described these different things that you do for people, you're actually trying to get out of your comfort zone. Are you obsessed with being outside of your comfort zone?
Well, I think there's a lot of growth outside your comfort zone. I really do. I think again, there's that risk thing. I mean, it's really kind of easy to kind of cocoon yourself in and be a protectionist and kind of stay where you're at. But I don't think there's any growth in that. So that's why I try to push people to do things that they haven't done before, in ways that I think would help them grow. And yeah, I think that's another great question. And it's part of the book and Comfort, Peace, and Freedom. I talk a lot about that in the book. So yeah, that's something that I enjoy doing, is kind of getting a little uncomfortable so that I can grow.
Amazing. Who's helped you most in your career?
Wow. I would say my first boss and my father, because they were alike in certain ways and they were very different in certain ways. One of them was, I think he was there was a very romantic way to look at his life. He was like a player, he was a successful, good looking guy. And he lived that kind of 80s life. And you could I had to help him do a lot of things to support that. And so I was involved in a lot of really cool things like places and people and cars and boats and stuff like that. So I got to kind of immerse myself in that and figure out what I wanted and what I liked and didn't like. And then my father, who was very tough, very strict, and he loved things just right. And so I kind of connected those two disciplines together. And he became very successful himself, but he turned right around and said, "Hey, I did this on my own. Now you got to go do it on your own." And I love him for that, because those disciplines really helped me to figure it all out.
And again, this is not part of the question, but I'm just interested in what you said. Your transition from being the son to the father, how have you managed that as a father? Were you strict with them, or? Because the thing is, like, you were obviously successful when you run your own business. One of the things that I think a lot of people, entrepreneurs and business owners that came from nothing, I didn't really come from very much when I was born, but we're now at the stage where I've got kids and I want to teach them the value, or my values that they can implement in their lives. How has that transition for you been from the child with a strict father into being a father yourself?
Well, two things. I have the money to hire whoever I want to work on my landscaping and do all that kind of stuff. Yet I do some of that, but I also go out there and I still work on it. I enjoy doing it. So she'll see me in my work boots out in the yard, digging bushes or planting trees or planting flowers. And so she sees the fact that I'm still doing things like that, even though I could have somebody else do it. And I think the other thing is, I don't answer a lot of questions. I mean, if she asks me a question, I'll say, well, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, what are your options? Like, oh, so you have option 1, option 2, option 3, and how do you feel about that? Which one's the best? So I just ask, if she asks me for direction or asks me about questions about something, I will just really try. And it takes some patience and it takes time, but you really need to redirect it back at them and say, well, I don't know, Nicole, what do you think? I mean, we were talking about bills and whatnot. Well, what bill should you pay off first? Well, I don't know. What are the interest rates? What do you think? And so you get them to form their own conclusion. You get them to answer their own question, even though you might have helped guide them a little bit. Just don't be that, wow, I'm so great, I answered my daughter's question. Forget that. Let her come to her own conclusions, and she'll be much more independently minded that way.
Amazing. Tell me about a regret that you've had.
A regret that I've had. I got a life clock a long time ago. I actually call it the death clock, Mark. So I got this clock from my staff for a Christmas present, and it's a clock where you plug it in, and then you put your age in, and then you hit go. And it starts with like 450,000 hours, minutes, and seconds, and it starts spinning them off backwards. So you can see your life disappearing in front of your very eyes. So at first I thought, well, this is really cool. And, I'm going to be this efficient person. So I just got really into being really efficient and doing things quickly. And for 2 or 3 weeks, I was like this madman of efficiency and all that. And after a while, I looked at this clock and I literally tore it out of the wall and smashed it, threw it into my dumpster, because I was seeing my life disappear before my very eyes. So I probably regret ever asking for that for Christmas, but it's a funny thing.
What are you most proud of?
I am most proud of my daughter. She came through a horrible disease, suffered for a long time, and Nancy and I were pretty scared about that for a while. But now she's good. She's been good for a long time, and that should be the case. She has overcome half blindness. She can only see out of one eye, and she can play golf, and she can do all these great things, and she's creative, and she's funny, and she's enthusiastic, and she feels bad for other people and their things, but not for herself. Never pitied herself ever, and she's just a really strong, awesome human being. So I'm really proud of how that whole thing turned out.
And you made that. You made that.
I don't know. I might have something to do with it. I don't know.
What does legacy mean to you?
Well, I think if people look back, I hope that they say, you know what, Ken was very generous. I do a lot of different charity things. We give here at our company of our time, our treasure, and our talents, not just our money. I mean, we actually get involved in charities. And I share a lot of what I've done with my company, with my employees. So I would always want people to say, you know what, Ken was fair. He was enthusiastic. He was inspirational, but above and beyond, he was very generous. And I would hope that would be the thing they remembered.
I'm sure they will. And lastly, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
So if you go to kenrusk.com, I've done something interesting. I've created a course that goes along with my book, and I'll tell you why. I think sometimes we read a lot of books and we put them up on the shelf and they become like trophies, where You have the books, but can you remember what was in any of them? So I did this thing where I built this course. It took me a year. It's an online course. It's 1 hour a week for 8 weeks, or you could do it in a weekend if you wanted. But it forces you to take the book and really change the way you think about the future, change your life, do the drawing, make these things happen to better yourself. Now, again, in the sense of charity, my life, Mark, was really good before I wrote this book. I don't do this to make money, but with the book, this course is $129 and you get a free $25 book with it. And if you buy it, I'll donate one to you or anybody you know, in the case, so that if you're helping yourself, you're helping someone else at the same time. And I tend to take my money from the book and donate it anyway. So just know that if you do decide to help yourself, you're going to help someone else in the process.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Ken. It's been absolutely fascinating. What a great story. And one of the things I've taken from this is generosity and giving is something that we should all be doing a lot more. And me personally, I think it's something, speaking to you today, that's really focused me. And I'm like, actually, there's a lot more that I can do. Time, money and effort can go into charities and helping other people is so important. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.